If you think dynamic insertion is only for flooding a podcast with bad ads, think again. Here's how one new podcast is pushing the boundaries of dynamic insertion and how it makes the show better. Hello and welcome to another Podcast Pontifications with me, Evo Terra. Happy February, America! Oh no, wait. Dang it. I just ruined the evergreen ability of my show. And I probably signaled to a good chunk of my listening audience that this episode's not for them. Well, not true. Although, the bulk of my listeners will certainly come this month, and the vast majority will be from America, so maybe it's worth it for me to make that sacrifice. No, it's 2021, man. Oh, wait, there I go again. There's a much better way to do this. There's a new podcast out, which you might have heard of. It's from Sounds Profitable. That's the ad tech newsletter that my friend Bryan puts out. And full disclosure, I'm editing all of that. I'm involved with that. He's got a new podcast out, just dropped last night, and I've been working furiously with Bryan and Ian to get that whole thing done. Lots of conceptings went into it, but it is out. And I implore you to listen to it, even if you don't think you care about podcast advertising. You really need to listen to that podcast, if only for the reason I'm about to tell you right now. It is only, it's 20-ish minutes. It's less than 30 minutes long, the episode is. There are 8 different spots in that first episode that are dynamically inserted. 8 different insertion points in a 30-minute episode, which is you say, hey, you're just crazy big, too many, right? Well, however, you will only recognize 2 ads in the middle of the content. Just 2. Out of all those dynamic insertion spots, you will probably only say, oh, that's an ad. Twice, because there really are only 2 ads. What? You see, we as podcasters have got to stop thinking of our episodes as complete when we make them in our DAW, and then dynamic insertion as something that comes along and breaks those episodes apart. Breaks into the story we're trying to tell. No. If we do it together, if we plan out the reason for dynamic insertion, which I'm going to get to in just a second, plan it out from the beginning, lots of strategy, we can make something really cool. We still need to make a base episode, right? These computers that are going to assemble stuff in a minute, I'll talk about it. We still have to establish a base. But I want us to think about that base episode as something slightly different than we think right now. Because again, right now we think, oh, finished episode, dynamic breaks it up. No, I want the base episode that will sound okay. It'll sound fine in the event that no inserts happen because, I don't know, the robot's on a vacation or there are certain conditions you didn't trigger. It needs to sound okay, but it should sound much better when the dynamic content hits. So how you do that is up to you, but here's how Bryan is doing it with the Sounds Profitable podcast. Number 1, he's using dynamic insertion to make his episodes, which are timeless, they are evergreen. He is using dynamic insertion to make that content time activated. Yeah, some of the content that is dynamically inserted changes depending on when you listen during the month. If you listen early in the month, you may hear messages one way. But if you listen later in the month, when you download the file later in the month, you'll hear a different message. So all that whole February 2021 stuff I did, that could all be done dynamically. Yeah, so it gets rid of it. It's not the time of month to do that. He's also using dynamic insertion to rotate through his supporters. Now, a lot of podcasters have Patreon supporters or other ways people support them. Pretty common to do just a big name dump at the end of the episode. Well, we're doing something different on Sounds Profitable. Bryan's doing something different on Sounds Profitable. Instead of just reading out everybody all at once and having everybody forced to listen to that, he's using it to do a 30-second promo, if you will, highlighting, giving everybody their 15 or 30 seconds worth of fame, but on a rotational basis. So everybody gets exposure. You'll hear different people at different times. How great is that? He's also able to make specific requests of his audience based on the app they're using to listen to the show. I mean, if I was to tell everybody, and I don't do this, but many people say, ask for ratings, reviews on Apple Podcasts. Makes a lot of sense because that's most listeners. Well, there's no way to do a rating or review to a Spotify listener. Spotify doesn't have that. You can't say subscribe either. I mean, you shouldn't say subscribe to someone listening on Spotify because it's called follow over there. Each one of these apps has a slightly different way they handle things. Bryan's able to tailor the message of the action he wants them to take in app depending on what app they're using. Yeah. He's also going to get very hyper-local with the message. He's targeting down to 6 countries. You could do the same thing. You could put a message in there that's specific to a city. If in the event you're traveling to a city and you want to do a meetup, once this whole pandemic thing is over, you want to do that again, dynamic content can let just the people that live in that city. Like, I'm coming to Nashville for Podcast Movement 2021. You want to meet up? I could put that message just out to people in Nashville, and so could you. Or you could mention something that's relevant to an entire country. Congratulations on winning the World Cup, whoever won the World Cup. But only put that message to that country. Sorry you came in second place, Bolivia. I have no idea who plays soccer. These are things that you could do. Bryan's also able to talk to subscribers of the show. He's got a clever way he's figured that out. Versus people who stream it or even one-time downloaders with a different message. I mean, obviously the streamers and one-time downloaders, you might want to subscribe to the show or follow based on where it is. He's doing really cool things with this. And again, he's using ad tech, but not really using ads. Yeah, like I said, there's a couple ads in the middle of it that he's using the same technology for. But the real power of this comes in how he's established the content. So how creative do you think you could get with dynamic content? How will it change the way you approach assembling an episode, gathering content, and certainly finally publishing an episode? I'm going to be doing this real soon. My hosting provider is working on dynamic content insertion. That's Captivate FM, of which I'm on the advisory board. We're doing it pretty soon, and I'm going to be one of the early beta testers. And I'm going to take a lot of inspiration from what Bryan did with Sounds Profitable, what we put together with Sounds Profitable, and work on modifications here to podcast pontification. So that's going to be fun. If you go to buymeacoffee.com/evoterra and you become a member, members will have some perks in my new content creation process I'm about to start going through. So if you want your podcast in, go to buymeacoffee.com/evoterra. Sign up for a membership. And as soon as I'm ready to start doing things, I'll be reaching out to those members and letting them know. In the meantime, tell a friend about Podcast Pontifications. Please tell a friend about the new Sounds Profitable podcast, because it's really, really breaking the envelopes, and I implore you to go listen to that. It's really cool stuff. Well, that's it. Have an enjoyable rest of your week, and I shall return tomorrow with yet another Podcast Pontifications. Cheers.